Hello, and welcome back to Hunter Tuned. Today I am working on something a little bit different. So I had a customer of mine hit me up a couple days ago and asked me if I could kind of work on his Chevy Caprice. So this is a 2012 Chevrolet Caprice Police Interceptor, or like a cop car. It's a pretty rad car, actually. Sorry, it's kind of dark in here and I don't really have a whole lot of lighting going on. But anyways, he asked me to work on this thing for him, so just going to kind of give you a rundown of the car quick. This is, like I said, a 2012 Chevy Caprice. It has a 6.2, I think, LS-based motor, aluminum block. Actually, I don't even know what motor's in this thing. I think they swapped a truck motor into it because he bought it at an auction, and it had a blown engine, so they put a different engine in it with sloppy stage 2 camshaft, pack 1218 valve springs, and they put a turbo kit on it from VS Racing. So it has the Billet 7875 turbocharger. I'm kind of working on it right now, but I figured I'd just give you guys a quick rundown of what I'm doing to it. This is a Billet 7875, like I was saying. Super nice turbo. I sell these on my website, huntertuned.com. If you guys want to pick up a Billet 7875 or Cast 7875 or decapped injectors for your LS build or anything like that, I do have some stuff on my website if you guys are interested. But anyways, like I said, working on this for a customer. Pretty cool turbo kit here. They got it fabbed up into this car pretty nicely. Intercooler sits right behind the bumper here. They cut out some of the support stuff and mounted it below, like I usually do on a lot of the builds that I've done in the past. What else here? So we got the big 4-inch coupler down to the 3-inch coupler here with the VS Racing blow-off valve. Runs down over. And they built their own hot side. So this is like the factory manifolds on this thing, and they just put a 90 over on this side to run it up, and then underneath it has a custom exhaust that meets up into the existing, where I just showed you guys, up to that turbo flange. They have this side's manifold. So they have this side's manifold running down and around and up. So this is the one that goes up to the turbo manifold there. The wastegate is plumbed into a pretty bad spot, but hopefully it doesn't boost creep. This is actually on the driver's side manifold portion of the exhaust only. So I'm really hoping this thing doesn't boost creep. It is a VS Racing gate as well, and that is plumbed into the downpipe. So that's pretty rad. They got that plumbed in down here, and it's got a full 3-inch exhaust that runs all the way out the tailpipe. This car has a 6L80 transmission, I think. I think these cars came with a 6L80. This is really similar to like the Pontiac G8 and stuff like that. It has decapped factory injectors. So I think this is like the new body style, flex style injectors. New body style, as in like they're really short, like LS3 style injectors, I think. They're like literally like this freaking tall. The flex style is really tall. The normal truck decaps are about the medium height, and these are really short. So anyways, back to the story here is this car got dropped off because it did not start. It did not run. They put the turbo kit on, got the decapped injectors and all this stuff in there. They redid the fuel system. They ran an Aeromotive external regulator with new fuel line running from the tank all the way up. So it has like a return system here. They just used fuel injection hose, which I don't really see too much of a problem with, but it should be kind of a temporary thing. I don't recommend having this on the car for like ever. But they do have like a return style setup going on this regulator here. So the feed line comes up to the side, comes through, gets regulated, and then bleeds off the return pressure on the bottom, and then comes up this way and feeds into the rail, because these rails only have one port on them, and the one port is for feed line only. If you wanted to make a different return style setup, you'd have to get 2 rails with the crossover and then do like a feed on one side and a return on the other. That's what I did on my Mustang, and that seems to work out good too. But this thing, they just did it a little bit different, which is totally fine. So anyways, car got brought to me because it didn't start, and he said he kind of wanted me to just go through it because he's never done a turbo build. And it was just him and a couple of buddies. They actually own a tire shop a little bit south of town from me, and he just asked me like, hey, can you kind of go over this thing, tune it up, and see if you can get it running good or whatever. So he brought it up. And he dropped it off this morning, and I started working on it. I've been working on it all day kind of thing. I didn't really pick up the camera too much because I was trying to focus on what the hell was actually going wrong with this thing. But the one thing that I did notice is it would crank and crank and crank and crank and crank, and it would not fire. So I pulled the tune up, which this is a E38 computer, so it's like a newer style computer that these cars run on, and the newer these GM vehicles get, the more complex the computer gets. So I pulled up the tune that was in the E38 computer, and it's kind of crazy because these E38 computers actually have like 3 different calibrations that you write. You can write the engine control unit, then the transmission control, and then there's like a some other one. I don't even know what it does. So I'm sure somebody will answer in the comments. But anyways, this car brought to me, the whole interior was kind of torn apart out of this thing because it had a bunch of wiring kind of just hanging out. They have a wideband wired in already, so that was cool. And they have that plumbed into the downpipe. But like I said, it would crank and crank and crank and not fire. So I pulled up the tune, and I kind of looked it over, and it did not have speed density enabled on the tune, and they deleted the mass airflow sensor and wired in a 3-bar map sensor. So the 3-bar is wired in up here on the front of the intake manifold. They sit on these things. And I noticed when it got dropped off, the wiring was all cut up at the map sensor. So I was kind of looking at the map sensor wiring, like what the hell's going on here. And I think the map sensor, how they had it wired, might have been wrong or incorrect. So I had to kind of chase down the wiring on this thing and figure out what pin went to what. So I got the map sensor wiring correct. It actually reads properly now and everything like that. They actually thought that this thing had a bad map sensor. So I took the map sensor off of my truck. And it kind of sucks because in the process of taking the map sensor out of my truck, I broke the map sensor that was sitting in my truck. So I took the map sensor that this thing had, hoping it was still good, and put it in my truck, and it was fine. So I pulled the map sensor back out, and it's still in this car. My truck doesn't even have a map sensor right now because I busted it. The plastic must have just got really cold sitting out, in the weather. And this is the culprit. So the nipple busted right off of my map sensor. It kind of sucks. I was thinking about just kind of hot gluing something on there. Or I'll just have to buck up and buy another one. It just sucks because, I was just going to use it to test something and I ended up busting it. So that really sucks. I'm just going to have to go on EFI Source and get another one. But anyways, so this thing, I plugged the map sensor in, I got the wiring straightened out, I logged it to make sure the map sensor was reading. Everything was reading, and I cranked it, and I was messing with it for like an hour on the tune, because I'm like, I'm not really familiar with these E38 computers. It's got to be something in the tune. And I just kept cranking, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start checking some mechanical stuff here. So I was checking mechanical stuff, and you could hear the fuel pump come on, but I come up here to squeeze the fuel lines, and they were soft as shit. Like, there was no pressure. So I checked the valve on the Aeromotive, and I just pushed on it, and sure shit, no fuel. So I'm like, okay, well, the pump's turning on, but there's no fuel coming up to the rail. So I proceeded to go into the trunk, or not the trunk, but the back seat of this thing. So this is the back of the car. They actually cut a access panel in the back of this thing to get at the fuel pump, which is pretty cool. It makes life a little bit easier when you have something like this. And they had a relay wired as well as the stock fuel pump. So they had a Wally 450 in this thing along with the factory fuel pump. So I yanked the fuel pump out of it. I put it up on the bench, checked it all over, deleted the factory pump because it's kind of useless. Unless they were trying to use like the Wally as a second pump. But they were only turning on the factory pump. The Wally wasn't even coming on. There's no hob switch. There's no boost to switch. Anything like that on this car. So I was like, what the hell are they trying to do here? So I got rid of the factory fuel pump completely. And I put the Wally 450 in its place in the factory bucket. And rewired it so it comes on with the key. So the wiring was a little bit messed up back here with the fuel pump. So I had to diagnose some wiring issues and a whole bunch of other stuff. But the reason it wasn't getting fuel is because the fuel line that was coming off of the factory pump, which was the one getting activated, had a tear in it. So the tear in the fuel pump was just pushing the fuel straight back into the tank. It wasn't actually making any pressure or coming out to the fuel rail. So like I said, I deleted the factory pump, put new hose on, ran the Wally 450 in place of the factory pump, put it all back together, and now we got fuel pressure. So we got fuel pressure all the way up to here, and then I flicked the key, it fired right up. So it's running good. I got it tuned up a little bit. I haven't really even messed with the E38 computer, like I was saying. I'm going to be messing with it some more coming here. So I got it, just kind of flashed some stuff on. I grabbed a base file off of sloppymechanics.com from a Corvette or something that was on there, a newer Corvette that has the E38 computer, and I kind of just looked over some things, kind of seeing what people are changing, and kind of went from there. And I kind of loaded in some things that I thought needed to be loaded in to the computer, and like I said, it fired right up. So we got it running good. It runs good, but now we have another issue on our hands with the exhaust. So the exhaust is puking smoke really bad. I don't know why. This motor, he said that they went through it, which could be good, it could be bad. It could be bad that they went through it, it could be good that they went through it. But the thing that's going on here is they haven't worked on this car since summer. So it's been sitting for a long time is what I'm getting at. So it has brand new oil in it. It has coolant. It was a little bit low when I dropped it off. So I hooked up my coolant funnel here, and I just topped it off with a little bit of water because it was full of coolant, but I'm just topping it off with water. So it'll mix in eventually, and it will be good. But, so, yeah. The exhaust is really oily. So it smokes out my garage within 5 minutes, about. And I'm trying to figure out where the hell the smoke is coming from. It doesn't seem like it's a compression issue, because there's no smoke coming out of the breathers, like off of the valve covers. They have the breathers off the valve covers just kind of pointing at the ground on both sides, which is cool. That's what I would do. And there's no smoke coming out of there. So I don't think it's an engine issue, and I don't think it's a blow-by issue. I'm thinking, it could be the turbo seals. I'm not 100% on that, or it could be just from sitting. I'm not sure. But the oil, like if I pull the downpipe off of this thing, and I like look inside the downpipe, it's all milky. Like milky, like it's mixed with water. Like water and oil are in the exhaust. Or fuel and oil, or something like that. So I'm hoping that the injectors are good. It might have a stuck injector. That's another possibility. And it could be flooding one cylinder and flooding the exhaust with, fuel, and that's kind of what's mixing with the, just exhaust, and it's making it look like milk because of that. Otherwise, I was like, okay, so this turbo is brand new. It's a brand new billet 7875. It spins super nice. It has barely any shaft play. It has like the normal 1/8 of an inch or whatever of shaft play side to side, just like any journal bearing turbo has. But like I said, it's weird because I'm like, man, it's acting like the seals are backed up in the turbo. So I proceeded to go under this thing and kind of check out what they had going on for a drain line. And they have the drain line kind of running into the side of the pan. Normally on these cars, or any LS car, I run the drain line right under the crank pulley. That seems to work the best because there's really no oil that sits up here when you're running. Most of the oil is going to sit back in the sump back here. So they have the drain line kind of tapped into the sump. I'll show you guys right here. I put a cap on it temporarily because I wanted to run it for a minute with the drain line kind of just running straight down into a bucket. And that's what I did for the time being, just to kind of alleviate this from being an issue. But, so I just plugged it off, but I'm going to plug it back in now because I think it's high enough up on the sump that it shouldn't be an issue. And there was no real kinks or like bends in the return line. Coming down. It's just really tight in here, above like the, under the AC compressor and all that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking that the drain line, normally if the turbo is going to back up, like the turbo seals are going to back up and the turbo seals are going to push oil out of the exhaust, the return line's got to have like a kink in it, or like it's got to be literally flowing uphill, which this one wasn't. It was smooth. it would level, like the return line would level off, and it would be flat like this and travel into the pan, but it was never going uphill. So I don't think the return line really was an issue here. So I'm hoping that this turbo isn't bad. Being brand new, you never know. Sometimes you get manufacturer defects. But knowing VS Racing and stuff, I've never really had a bad turbo from them. So I don't think it's that. Like I said, I'm really kind of hoping that it's just that the car's been sitting a long time, and that's why it's smoking so much. And it has brand new everything. So like I said, it has brand new exhaust. It has brand new heat wrap. It has brand new everything, but it just chug-a-lugs out of the fucking exhaust. Like, this thing just pours fucking smoke out of the exhaust like no other. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the fuel pump wiring all done here, which it is done. I just have to button the return line back up. So I'm going to put the return line back where it was, and I'm going to kind of just let this thing run for a little while and see if the smoke gets a little better after it warms up a little bit. I'm hoping once it warms up and you get some heat in the exhaust that a lot of that stuff will burn out of there and whatnot. So I don't know, but this car is pretty rad. It's actually super cool. It's got like a cop light over there, like a big old fucking spotlight when you get pulled over for a DUI. It's just got this little switch right here, and then boom, we got a spotlight, baby. Look at that. You been drinking tonight? No sirree, Bob. Look at that. That fucker shines far. That's crazy. Could shine it across the street at the fucking neighbor's house. They'll probably fucking shoot me. Other than that, it's kind of basic car. Like I said, it's just a basic cop car. So no fancy leather seats or nothing like that. But it is definitely a sleeper for sure. So yeah. Another thing is too, at these back doors, Michael was laughing at this earlier, is the door locks are like totally not hooked up, because that's how these freaking cop cars are, because they put criminals in the back seat. So you cannot open the door at all from the back. So the only way you can open the back doors is from the outside. You can't open the back doors from the inside, which is kind of cool. Whatever. And these tires are wide as shit. So like the fronts aren't that wide, but the rears are like freaking, I don't even know what these things are factory. They're nuts. Like they're like a 235/50. Doesn't even seem that wide, but they seem like a 10-inch wide tire, honestly. It's kind of cool. Also, the trunk space in this car is ridiculous. Like, you could fit probably at least 10 dead bodies back here. Just in case you wanted to. Not saying anybody should. But, yeah, that's kind of cool. It looks just like an Impala. Like, I haven't really seen one of these cars in person. But it does look like an Impala from the rear. Sorry I got such shitty lighting. I got the car jacked up right now. Otherwise, I'd show you more in the daytime. But I plan on doing some more with it tomorrow. So, figured I'd throw this video for you guys quick. I know it's all blabbing and talking about it, but figured I'd update you guys on what I'm working on. Just working on this Caprice. Trying to get it running good and kind of just plugging away at it. So, yeah. I got a exhaust gasket for my CRX because it has an exhaust leak. I actually got that this morning. And I plan on fixing the little exhaust leak that the CRX has, and that thing should be good to go. I got a Honda 4-bar map sensor for my hatch that I want to switch over to, because it currently just has an eBay 3-bar. And I don't trust the eBay 3-bar, so I want to switch it over to a 4-bar Honda map sensor, because I got one yesterday when I went up by another guy, and I picked up this motor that I'm building for him. So this is a D16 A6 single cam that I'm building for a guy for a roundy round car. It goes in circles on a track. So that's all the details I'm going to give you on that. But yeah, so this guy, not going to say his name or nothing because he's cool. He's a racer guy. And we got, we're going to get some pistons in this motor. This is getting high compression P29 pistons, which comes out of like the 86 to 89 first gen Integras. They have a little bit higher dish, or a little bit higher dome on them. These are a little bit dished factory. So we're going to get the dome pistons. We're going to run the A6 head, and I'm going to send this D16 A6 camshaft out to Delta Cams out in Washington. And he's going to regrind the factory cam, and we're going to run the stock cam gear and all that. So it's nice and secretive, stock motor racing kind of thing. But we're just going to regrind the stock camshaft, and we're going to throw some factory P29 pistons in it. So that should be fun. I'm going to have to get some parts coming for this guy. And he's also going to run a Y8 intake and then a Y8 exhaust manifold, because the Y8 exhaust is like the best flowing one or whatever. But anyways, this guy, I picked up this motor and stuff from him because this is the guy that actually bought my CRX last year. So the CRX that I had that we went over 100 miles an hour on the lake with, and we just played with on the ice and over last winter, I sold that car to this guy because he wanted the motor that I built out of it to run into one of his other race cars, and he wanted the shell to use as a enduro car for an enduro race, which I thought was really cool. And he switched the car, or he pulled the motor out to put it into an actual race car, and he scrapped the old shell. So the old shell had Hasport motor mounts, and it had like a Hasport shift linkage and some other stuff that I got from a couple subscribers last year. The Hasport mounts I bought for a really good deal on Craigslist, and all this stuff. I also got the wideband that was out of that car. This guy gave me a whole bunch of stuff out of the CRX that he wasn't using anymore because he's switching to an Integra chassis for that motor. So I got Hasport mounts for my CRX for B-Series cable. This is awesome. So like I got the fucking mounts. I got the T-bracket off of that CRX. The only thing I don't have is the post mount. So I need to get a post mount. And I have all the mounts to put a B-Series into my CRX, which is super rad. So, anyways, my CRX also had a Honda 4-bar map sensor on it because I'm an idiot, and I left it on there when I sold the car. So I just said, hey man, I'll give you a stock map sensor back, and I have the Honda 4-bar back. And he gave me my Honda 4-bar map sensor back because that car wasn't even boosted. I just literally had that one laying around, and I threw it on there and never took it back off because I was stupid. So, yeah, we got another wideband. Now I only need 2 widebands, and we'll be good on widebands. So if anybody else has a few widebands for sale and they want to give me a really good deal on a wideband, I need like 2 more to have for all my cars. So, yeah. But that's it. Yeah. So ramble. That's what this video was. Sorry guys, hopefully you enjoyed the introductory to this Caprice. And we will get working on it. Be sure to subscribe so you guys know what goes on with this car, what we end up doing with it, how it ends up running, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sorry we couldn't really get any footage of building this turbo kit and stuff like that, but I have a bunch of videos on my channel of doing that already with my Chevy Silverado and a few others. So, in my Mustang. But yeah, so thanks for watching the video, guys. Like I said, be sure to subscribe, comment, like, and we will talk to you later. So have a great day.